Hello again, and welcome to our new workshop. It's been a few crazy months of living in cardboard boxes and dealing with everything else that comes with moving to a new house. But finally, the new workshop is up and running. There's been a few adjustments along the way, cause starting with white walls and an empty space, it's really hard to imagine where to even begin, where to place everything, and what colors and materials to use. But now it might be the ultimate man cave. If you like making props and stuff, that is. So, let's take the tour. I believe the best place to start off any tour of a workshop is with a workbench. After all, it is the heart of any workshop. It's quite large and heavy, meaning it's sturdy and dependable. It's also height adjustable, making it adaptable for different kinds of projects. And the deep red walnut finish is chosen specifically to go well with the display wall as a backdrop. And to achieve the best possible workflow, everything else is built and centered around the table. And first off is the candy shop, otherwise known as the paint collection. You can always put your paint bottles in the drawer, but for a couple of specific reasons, I made my own design. This way, I can easily sort my paint bottles into different groups. Each container holds 13 bottles. That gives me one container with 13 shades of red paint, one container with 13 shades of greens, and well, you get where I'm going with this. I even have a dedicated container holding all my favorite shades for the flesh tones. That's a time saver for sure. Each container is easily accessible and can be quickly pulled off and on the rack. And it makes it really easy to see what paint you have and what you don't have. This next part is of course not workshop specific, but since we make YouTube video builds, this is the setup we use 90% of the time. A simple but solid tripod, a good camera that's hooked up to a bigger screen. This makes it a lot easier to keep track of things like focus and basically getting some good footage while you're deeply focused on painting the details or whatnot. On the right side of the table is my absolute favorite tool, the airbrush. And slightly off to the back of it is my second favorite, the toolbox. We modified it with a new bottom frame and replaced the cheap plastic wheels with some quality lock-in-place rubber wheels, ultimately making it easy accessible as an extra table around the workshop. The top section is completely dedicated to all things related to the airbrush. I've even made a small tray that contains everything essential for it. And just a quick tip. How many times haven't you dropped your airbrush hose on the floor while cleaning it? Well, a couple of well-placed magnets can easily solve that. And just by having the toolbox so close to the workbench, it greatly improves the workflow. Every tool is easily accessible, and you can have complete focus on whatever project you're working on. And you probably already know this, but as you can easily tell, I really do like to have things organized. Of course, you don't have to do it this way, and you might not even have the space for it. But I think the important thing to take away from this, it's the fact that being a maker in our day and age, there is such a plethora, or just an unbelievable range of easily accessible tools and materials.
It's a bit of a mess, isn't it?
That you simply have to have some way of organizing it. Otherwise, you'll lose track of what you have and don't have. Not to mention, you'll never find what you need when you actually need it. And of course, you don't have to agree with me on everything. There's being organized, and then there's being me. My wife just calls it stroking my OCD. The compressor for the airbrush is finally placed in a separate container. It's actually an old nightstand that we covered with some noise isolation foam. And of course some nice rubber wheels, so it can be easily moved over to the spray booth. If you remember back to the video I did on the cardboard spray booth, well, this one is based on the same designs. A couple of things might have been improved, but it's the same brackets and the same lighting that's added to this one. It's even the same brushless fan duct, taking the filtered air outside again. It's all been spray painted black and dark grey to fit the color scheme of the workshop. Also, it's made of plywood this time, so I placed all the usual tools you would use with a spray booth directly on top of it. And I found the perfect spot to place the paint shaker. And speaking of the cardboard spray booth video, you might remember me saying it was 20 degrees outside, and that was the reason I couldn't paint. Well, of course I meant 20 degrees below zero. That would have saved me a couple of hundred comments. And yeah, the paint wall isn't actually a wall at all, but rather a big homemade sliding barn door. This way, I can still use the windows and utilize the most of the space we have. To the left of the spray booth, we put in one of those big storage shelves that you would usually put in your garage. The shelves already had a black frame that would fit perfectly. But you know those standard light brown MDF plates? And I know this from experience, that when it comes to cleaning them, they can't handle moisture. So to make them look better and be more practical, I bought 2 rolls of some self-adhesive vinyl paper. It's really quick and easy to apply, and it looks a lot better. And when, not if, but when I spill any paints or resin, it can be easily cleaned off. The large deep storage shelves are mostly suited for storing bags and other containers, just like the ones in this collection. Each container either contains a group of tools or a machine, like this 3D scanner or this mini laser. Just to address this before you comment on it, we know we're really fortunate to have a lot of cool tools, machines and expensive gadgets, but these are all things that are accumulated over more than a couple of decades. So if you're just starting out with this as a new hobby, please don't be discouraged. We all have to start somewhere. And if you're really passionate about it, your skills and tools will both surely level up. The last big open shelf is used for all the different pieces on any ongoing projects we might have. Whether it's something you've sanded or parts of something you've just painted, it's always good to have a dedicated space to store things temporarily. It's the same way, or the same workflow that we've been using for years now, except this time we finally put in some dedicated lights. Moving toward the other side of the room, we have our studio setup. It's not the most complex thing, just an old MacBook, an iPad, and a good microphone. It's basically all we need for designing stuff, slicing something for the printers, or editing a video. But on the opposite wall is one of my all-time favorite things, a dedicated space to display all the things we've made. There isn't much left, as all the stuff we've made over the years, we've usually given it away to family and friends. Some things, however, were sold off during the move, and I never would have guessed it, but that actually gave us the budget to build this room. And yet, somehow, we managed to hold on to some of our favorite pieces. And the idea of it all was to use it as a backdrop for filming all the future video builds. Now that, I think, will look awesome. There are actually 2 air vents in this room, and a dedicated air purifier for the resin printers. Still, having a medium-sized air purifier smack in the middle is a big bonus. Going back to the entrance, on the left side, we first have a big FDM printer. And because it's so big and heavy, we used an IKEA bench module with a thick, solid plywood top. It was all painted and given some 3D printed handles. And finally, everything was bolted to the wall, making everything really solid. Might have been a bit of an overkill, but now I can safely say that I can run the machine at top speed without any vibrations. And of course, the extra added storage space is always welcome. Just on the other side of that wall, we have our first of 2 resin printers. I guess you can call it a small to medium-sized resin printer. It was actually delivered the same week we moved in. But since we just finished building the workshop, not to mention the rest of the house, we haven't been able to use it yet. So, 4 months in, coming this weekend, nothing is gonna stop me from testing it out. And side by side with this one, we have our big boy. We've had it for a couple of years now, and I know several new models have been released since, but I'm still using this one as long as I can, because it's been hacked and modified from top to bottom, making it produce hassle-free perfect prints every time. And speaking of hacks and modifying things, this used to be a wardrobe with some big sliding doors. We just moved around a couple of things, integrated a solid homemade workbench, and we used some more of those vinyl decals. We also put in some lights. And with these 3 printers combined, I believe we have a full range complete setup that will hopefully handle any project we can think of in the future. And with that said, I believe we only got like halfway through the workshop setup this time around. So I guess there will have to be a video to follow up this one in a few months, because there's still a lot of things we would love to show you, like the dedicated room for cleaning the resin prints, and all the custom design stuff we made to greatly improve the workflow. And lastly, all the stuff we have yet to finish. If you have any feedback or questions, whatever they might be, feel free to leave them in the comments. Because we were also thinking about including a Q&A next time. But for this one, that was it. Hopefully you'll give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, and we'll definitely share our next video build with you. Thank you for watching.